Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Terry Lynch from Power Nickel. In this interview, we discuss Terry's organization called Save Canadian Mining, where Terry is looking into the problems that exist within the junior capital markets here in Canada and the issues that it poses for both mining investors and mining companies that all want to help build something real. We also touch on how South Korea has recently banned short selling, and we have a little discussion on the issues that short sellers pose for the Canadian junior markets. Terry also dives into the nickel market, what gets him excited about the market. And we also talk about Power Nickel, which is the company that Terry's the CEO of. And I got to say that he is a phenomenal pitch man and someone who really believes in what he's trying to do here. And I think it's something that you're probably going to want to check out if you are interested in nickel juniors. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Terry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Steve, always a pleasure to get on your show. Good to talk to you again.
So first off, I know something that you're passionate about is the health of the Canadian junior markets. And it's something that I really appreciate about you is that you're always sort of out there trying to figure out how we can find solutions for the retail investor or just the company in general that struggles to raise money. And there's been some stuff that's happened in the junior markets, perhaps over the last 10 years. Now, you're behind this organization, Save Canadian Mining. I got to ask you your assessment of what do you think's really happening in the junior markets that puts companies at a disadvantage, and what can we do about it to really fix things?
Yeah, basically, I fundamentally believe our regulatory system is broken. So what we have, is the world's, it's probably a top 15% commodity market, like almost near the top. Yet our TSX-V is at an all-time low, other than the pandemic little down dip. So something's structurally wrong. That's just no way of getting around that, and there's no way of sugarcoating it. And we've gone, Save Canadian Mining. We've lobbied for 3 years. Various provinces, speaking to the leadership, getting audiences, but no action. And at the end of the day, we have to blame the politicians. The politicians have not done their job of enforcing the regulatory regime that we should have in this country to make it possible for people to fairly raise capital, to fairly invest in capital. And it's interesting to see just a couple of weeks ago, South Korea banned short selling completely until next June or July. And if you look at country performance, South Korea is killing it, right? They are, and honestly, I was there, in March last year speaking at a battery conference, and, there's a country that's got no resources. They just got hardworking, smart people with a strategic plan. And my God, they're just like, they're kicking ass and taking names. And if they see enough skullduggery to full on close their system to short selling in pursuit of international investment banks who they feel are harvesting their system, their investors, and they stop it, there's a message there for the rest of us. We need to wake the hell up.
We always hear about short selling, that there's value in it, right? That it keeps companies honest, that they know that if they're doing shady stuff or they're maybe over exaggerating what they actually have, that there's somebody out there who's going to clip them. And from my perspective, what happens in Canada is there's this mechanism where hedge funds, they short stocks knowing that there's no white knight coming to save them. The company's going to have to do a financing, and they're going to come in with that lead order. And then I also believe that what happens is sometimes when that trade works against them, or they feel like they have a really good shot of going and finding a publisher and paying that publisher to issue a report, they've got really expensive analysts who are really good at what they do. They've probably seen stuff in diligence lockers that the rest of us haven't. And they do their research and they hand that over to the short selling firms, who then make a ton of money on what started off as a sketchy lead order financing type strategy, and then ultimately turned into a, I guess we could say, short and distort campaign. But and perhaps I'm jaded because I'm generally, for the most part, I'm a long only mining guy, venture guy like you, but
Yeah.
what's the value in short selling?
Yeah, so you touched on a lot of important points here. Let's break them down so we can understand them one by one. So I conceptually, and we've always said that's a safe Canadian mining, we're not against short selling. If you're taking the other side of the bet, if you've got the stock in your account and you're selling it short, or you've got a legitimate borrow that you actually have a contract on that's been marked short, and you're shorting a stock and you're selling it short, that's fine. I got no problems with that. It's gotten so severe in South Korea that they've stopped it for a period of time. They're not saying they're going to stop short selling forever. They're saying, hey, this has gotten so out of hand right now, we're stopping it until we get control of the system. And I think we're well past that point in Canada. But the South Koreans aren't saying they're against short selling forever, and I'm certainly not against short selling. Okay, nor was Safe Canadian Mining. However, we are against predatory short selling, which we're seeing by the carton load here. Okay, and the regulators are saying, "Oh, we don't see it," but they aren't seeing nothing. Stock exchanges are at the bottoms, commodity markets are near the top, so the regulators are just being played. That's unfortunate, but that's my perspective. I believe it to be true. So what happened? What we're happening in Canada right now is you basically have these offshore hedge funds dealing through direct market access at the banks, generally speaking, possibly some other brokers, but generally through major pipelines like CIBC and RBC, et cetera, Scotia. And they basically, TD, they basically sell and through their robots, through their algorithmic trading systems, and they just have unlimited capital. They have unlimited capital to keep on putting this up. They come up with all sorts of, locally, an individual would have a great difficulty shorting a stock because individuals handle it with different gloves. We have to go to a broker. Broker has to get a borrow. He doesn't have a borrow. He can't short. He can't market short. They really police, the regulators police the individuals very well. They don't police the institutions very well at all. And this is the problem. And so what happens is you got this unlimited supply of stock that keeps on coming. I know people that have control of 85% of their float, really good companies, and stock just keeps coming out on really good news. That's just not normal behavior. That's what's wrong in a corrupt system. We have a corrupt system now. It's unfortunate, and we need to change it. There's just no way around it.
Now, I know you're out there, you're working your deal. Probably one of the hardest guys I see working in junior mining is Terry Lynch. I tell people that all the time, by the way. Every time I go to an event where there's people listening to pitches, I always see you there. And I wish that more of the CEOs that we've invested in over the years put in the amount of effort that you do going out there and just meeting with investors and pitching their deals. So I got to ask you, you're obviously really excited about nickel. When you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed and you think, is this worth all the effort? There's things I'm sure you think about that get you excited about nickel. What are those things?
Well, I think generally, you always look at floor and ceilings in investing, so the floor in nickel is that stainless steel is 70% of the nickel market. And stainless steel is about modernization. It's urbanization. So as people move from agrarian cultures to villages and to towns, they're buying fridges, pots and pans, that type of thing. That's all stainless. So stainless has been growing 6% compound annual growth rate for a number of years. Now, COVID put a lollipop into the system, and we're starting to see China recover now, so that'll start to pick up. So that's been the hiccup that's overhanging the short-term nickel market. Is stainless has been down because people have, the modernization has stopped for a moment in time. But I don't see that, and I don't think anybody sees that slowing down for long. That the move to urbanization is relentless. It's ongoing. And then, of course, the second big driver in the nickel market is electrification. So electrification, batteries for everything from your cell phone to, of course, cars. So the EV industry, the electric vehicle industry, occupies about 10% of the nickel market right now. They're forecasting by 2035 it'll be 50%. I don't personally believe that can take place because there's just not that much nickel in the world, and it's sure as hell not easy to find. Like, it's interesting if you look at lithium and nickel, two of the critical elements out there, for batteries. Lithium is a production issue, not a discovery issue. There's lots of lithium. Nobody's ever really looked for it before, and now we're looking for it. We're finding it, and now it's about how do we get it in production, and that's the challenge. Nickel has always been a discovery issue. People have been looking for nickel for the world's most valuable mine is a nickel mine, Norilsk in Russia. It's the only $1 trillion deposit in the world. So people have been looking, Voisey's Bay. I mean, there's always lots of legendary nickel mines, and they're really big. So people have been looking for nickel, but it's very hard to find, especially in grades that make economic sense. So so we like nickel because we like where we found it. We found it in the most beneficial place you could make a discovery. We found it in Quebec. We found it off the road, off a major highway, like literally can drive to the site off the route north. We found it beside the Hydro-Quebec substation, 8 kilometers outside of a town that's got an airport. So, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And we found it in an area where the Cree, who are our Aboriginal partner, they're very pro-mining. So they get business. They're actively involved in profiting from mining. And all of our drillers tonight, when they go home, they'll stay at the Cree Lodge. We do a lot of work with them. So we've got like community risk is checked, and then the Quebec government has done a great job in terms of setting up incentives for miners. So we just closed this financing. Stock was 23 cents or something like that. We closed the financing at 50 cents. So we got, that was possible because of the critical mineral tax credits, because of the provincial tax credits. And there's a way to do it where you can get the money in the company at 50 cents, yet the investors get in at 25 cents and they got a half warrant at 50. So that was good enough for them to get to the table. So that's really fantastic. And then that's just for exploration. For development, there's another series that kicks in where ultimately when we build this mine, we'll get almost half of our money provided by the federal and provincial governments via tax credits. So enormously attractive areas. The deposit itself, at the end of the day, you live and you die by your grade and your tonnage. So you're never going to, make it if you're, you gotta have some size. So we're about to post our inaugural 43-101 next week, I believe. Fingers crossed, but that's what the QP does decide it, right? So I have no official control over it, but that's the timeline we're working on. So I think that's going to show that we got a commercial ore body right now. And I think it's just a start based upon all of our research, and we've done some very innovative, ambient noise tomography, which I'm happy to talk about. A very exciting new tech in mining. I think it's going to change how we go at exploration. And I'm super stoked about what we've got now, what we're going to grow into. Now it hasn't translated into the market yet. We're hoping this 43-101 will be the catalyst. And then we still have to fight these shorts because Power Nickel's certainly been hammered by those guys as well. But we hope that our evidence will be just so compelling that at some point it gets stopped.
I saw somebody post this question on CEO.ca, so I thought it would be a nice question to ask you. But what type of mining model would the company be using for Nisk? Would it be open pit?
Yeah, so it'll be open pit at the top, and then it'll be a declines. And that's sort of how we would see it. So that's the way it seems like it's going to naturally shape up. And the other thing that we'll probably do, I think for sure, is we just won't be making concentrate. I think the other lesson that we've learned is because of changing dynamics in the nickel sector is refining is really where the money is. This is why Glencore and BHP and Rio Tinto and Wyloo and all these guys are making so much money. The refining side is enormously profitable. So we've got right now CVMR, 18 mines around the world and refineries. They're doing a feasibility study on Nisk. And ultimately, we see, progressing that forward, getting to the point where we would be able to actually not only mine the nickel, but refine the nickel and make nickel powders, nickel nanopowders, nickel wire, nickel anodes, nickel precursors. And we'll get 2.5 to 3 times LME price. So, and then the other kicker that Steve, I learned was interesting to make a concentrate, like our concentrate is going to be between, like if we go the old fashioned route where we make concentrate, sell it to the refiner, we'll probably get somewhere between 72 to 75%, of our nickel out of the ore, just the way it's going to work out. When we go this finished, product approach, we'll get 92, 95%. So not only do you get more paid more, but you get more, so it's really big. Now, the only possible because of this relationship that we were able to identify and capitalize on, because generally speaking, refinery technology is very expensive, and there's only very few people that have it, and we certainly couldn't have done it, couldn't have grown it, could only partner with it. So just one of those happy circumstances, a real plus that I don't think people recognize that's happened for us, and that's another message we continually have to work to get out.
So to create a concentrate that would require a full mill, right?
Yep, yep, yeah. You definitely full mining, processing, crushing the rock, floating the ore and aggregating it. Yeah.
So your plan is to get this thing to production.
Yes. Now, I'm a free agent and a capitalist. So if somebody comes in and makes it more profitable for me and my shareholders to go away, you know, I work on the behalf of my shareholders, of which I'm a big one. So that's ultimately the market will decide that as we progress. But our view is this can and should be a mine, and we should maximize our shareholder value by bringing it through to production with CVMR. And unless somebody throws us a mammoth amount of cash, that's probably the way we're heading.
One last question for you here. I know that there's a pretty big ESG angle to this company, and that's a big thing with nickel, especially when we start talking about some of these laterite projects in Indonesia, which are terrible for the environment. We actually put out a video on that, on the difference between class 1 and class 2, which you recommended that we actually make. So what can you tell us about what Power Nickel's doing to
Yeah,
be sort of more ESG compliant?
yeah. We're one of the first juniors to post their ESG report online. So we're happy about that. We're trying to maintain. That's a big part of how people are analyzing companies these days, and we want to be progressive on that side of things. And then, objectively speaking, we have a sustainable competitive advantage as a company to be, attempt to become the world's first carbon neutral nickel mine. And so, how would that be possible? Well, it's possible for several reasons. One, power source for this mine will be green hydroelectric power. Okay, we happen to be blessed by being in Quebec, being across from Hydro Quebec, so that obviously that's a huge start. You couldn't do that if you're in Tennessee, sitting beside a coal mine, so that's unfortunate for them, but not or Indonesia as an example. So there's that. Second thing, it's an ultramafic deposit. So the ultramafic deposit naturally sequesters CO2. There's things you can do to enhance that. So that's now a known technology. So we'll be employing that. And then the third thing is that there's three ways to make nickel. You can smelt it, you can use hydrometallurgy, or you can use chemical metal vapor process. Well, CVMR is like the world leader in that. It's not a new technology; it's been around for 100 plus years. They just happen to be the best at it. They have 18 plants doing this, so it has no external air effluent, no external water effluent. So it's a much more environmentally friendly way to make it. And then the fourth element is that we'll be building this into the building plants. Is we'll build a full recycling facility that takes old batteries and breaks them down as part of this process. And the reason why we'll do that is, well, and if you think forward, 10 years, there's very few recycled batteries today. Right now, probably they're going to the dump because there is no place to recycle them. But if you think about how this will go in the future, they'll be looking to recycle the components of these batteries and make them into new again. So by having this as part of the facility from the start, will cost us probably an extra 15 or $20 million versus like $125 million ground up recycling facility. So we can be most cost competitive on that. And we can, again, so whatever we didn't, we'll get as low as possible we can on the CO2 footprint. On the design side, there'll still be some CO2 footprint, but by taking the recycling in, we think that brings us back to neutrality and maybe even a negative position. So that's the thinking, and that's where we're heading.
So, in terms of investors watching over the next couple of months, we've got um, a pre-feasibility study coming out, hopefully within the next 10 days or so.
So no,
Anything else?
what's coming out in the next 10 days is the first technical report, the 43101. So we think
Okay.
that's coming out. There'll be some short position that we'll come out with. We'll talk about that. We'll get the first part of this feasibility study, which will get the total feasibility study from CVMR. We'll get a sort of end of Q or end of Q1, early Q2. We'll have a benchmark study, which will talk about how successful they're in their system. They're able to process the ore theoretically. So that'll come out. And then we'll also have the Fleet Space Technologies report, which is this incredibly useful new technology called ambient noise tomography that we've used to identify and successfully add to our exploration success. And we've identified a number of really amazing targets for us, both between 500 meters in the surface and then deeper. So yeah, we've just got, honestly, Steve, between now and December 15th or so, we'd expect to have pretty interesting news out every 3 or 4 days. So it just so happened that's how it's all come together. But we're coming, and we've compressed it together because now's the time for this thing to make its move. And I've been pounding the table, telling people that, and I think most people, I know we were going out to the shows, but honestly, it hasn't really done us any good. But I guess we've lost less than most. But I believe there's some big returns ahead for us and for our shareholders. So, and I think this next 6 weeks of news, because honestly, what'll happen? This is what's going to happen. We're going to show that this is going to become a mine. Okay. Now the market, should rate us against other people that they perceive to be a mine, and we're trading at between 5 and 10% of that value now. So that should shrink. If it does, then all's good. We can raise capital, keep on going. If that doesn't shrink, then what we'll be forced to do, otherwise we'll be stealing from our shareholders. We'll be forced to sell this company and we'll have an auction. Well, I'm sure we'll get, I'm sure we'll get 200-300 million, something like that. We should be able to get, in my mind, if we work this out, 10 times that. But if we can't get there at staying at a 30 million market cap, we got to make the leap up. Otherwise, we're stealing from our existing guys, and those are the guys that brought us. So we can't do that. So it's and that's why it's so important as an industry that this is happening to all sorts of really good mining companies that have viable deposits that could be developed by the people that found them and done the hard work, and they're getting robbed right now. And that's what we got to stop.
Well, Terry, thanks so much for hopping on here. Like I said, I appreciate all the work you do as the CEO of Power Nickel. I often tell CEOs that they should be at all these events, getting out there, doing everything they can to make sure that the investment community knows about the company that they are being paid to represent. And I know in your case, you're doing everything you can in your power to make this thing successful. So I do notice that, and I appreciate that as a shareholder of Power Nickel.
Thanks, Steve. Well, we appreciate you being there, and we're just going to keep on fighting. We're going to win this thing. So we're not going to stop until we do.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry.
See you, Steve. Cheers.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comments section. All right. Thanks, everybody.